Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're basically putting on our researcher hats and diving into a literal linguistic cold case. We are going deep into the original Arabic text of the Quran to uncover how historical semantic shifts, the way the meaning of words naturally drifts and changes over centuries, have fundamentally altered the original meaning of divine guidance. Our goal is to look past the medieval and modern assumptions, relying strictly on the original root definitions, to discover what the text is actually saying. So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. What if the words we use to define our highest moral callings have, over time, completely lost their true meaning? Think about it for a second. When a language evolves, the original laser-precise intent of a text can easily get buried under layers of modern vocabulary and cultural assumptions. Today, we're going to explore how modern Arabic usage often completely obscures these intended Quranic moral frameworks. To do this, we're going to zoom in on some specific verses, and right away you'll see a massive shift. We're contrasting the traditional interpretations, which heavily prioritize personal, individual religious rituals, against the original Quranic root meanings, which emphasize collective social responsibility. As you'll see, medieval exegetical traditions and modern dictionaries have somehow shifted the focus away from community restoration and turned it entirely inward. All right, let's dive into Section 1, the language of misguidance. Our investigation starts with verse 224. Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is the word urda. Traditionally, this verse gets translated to something like, "Do not make Allah an excuse for your oaths." But if we actually analyze the root of urda, it literally means an obstacle, a barrier, or something placed across something else. So it really begs the question, what exactly is Allah supposedly standing between? The text is warning us not to make God into a barrier between ourselves and something incredibly important. And that brings us right to the word amen. Instead of just translating amen as oaths or spoken formulas, which, to be fair, is how modern Arabic often uses it today, the root semantics reveal something way deeper. It derives from concepts of strength, stability, and trustworthiness. It actually means the deep, binding commitments and responsibilities you take upon yourself. So the verse isn't just about swearing an oath, it's a command not to use God as a convenience excuse to dodge your most serious binding commitments. Moving right along to Section 2, mapping commitments in 224. This brings us to three massive ethical goals tied to these commitments, starting with ber. Now, ber is frequently translated as a ritualistic action, like perform righteous deeds, but the book explicitly refuses ritual definitions. In verse 2:177, it states that bir is not about simply turning your face in prayer. Rather, it's defined as a practical truthfulness. It is an entire orientation toward justice, generosity, and genuine integrity. Next up in the verse is taqwa. Instead of the traditional, somewhat passive translation of fear God, taqwa is an incredibly active stance. Rooted in the idea of protection, it actually means safeguarding or protecting yourself from corruption and consequences by following divine guidance. It's absolutely not about a ritualistic fear, it's about protective awareness. Finally, we have islah. And again, this isn't just making peace in some passive, quiet sense. The root means to actively restore, repair, reconcile, and set right. And here is the absolutely crucial part. The verse specifies this is to be done among mankind. It is a direct, active command to restore proper order and repair what is fundamentally broken in society. Which perfectly transitions us to Section 3, from ritual to restoration. When we piece all these root definitions together and look at the verse as a single unit, it builds a brilliantly clear, logical sequence. Think of it like this. Step 1, genuine integrity, or bir, leads to Step 2, protective awareness, taqwa. And this logically culminates in Step 3, the ultimate goal of restoring society among mankind, which is islah. The text is literally urging us, do not invoke God in a way that obstructs your commitment to these three consecutive steps. And honestly, this is not random at all. We can map specific cross-references to prove it. In verse 244, reciting the book leads directly to bir. In verse 6:15-55, following the book leads to taqwa. And in verse 7:170, holding firmly to the book leads to islah. We see this repeated, deliberate pattern where the book consistently produces these three exact outcomes, which are then perfectly combined and mapped together right here in 222:4. It is a stunningly precise lexical network. Let's zoom out of it for Section 4, rethinking pairs and duty. We are going to apply this root-first methodology to another highly misunderstood concept. We often see the word azwāj translated biologically simply as wives or spouses. But if we strip that away and look at the root, it denotes pairing, joining, or a complementary association. It fundamentally means paired counterparts or duty-binding relationships. By assuming it only means biological spouses, we are forcing a very narrow modern definition onto a beautifully broad concept. Verses 36:36 and 51:49 deliberately widen the scope of azwāj to prove this. The text states that God created all pairings, from what the earth produces, from human beings themselves, and even from things we don't even know yet. This broad semantic field can encompass everything from day and night to magnetic forces and gravity. It proves, without a doubt, that azwāj functions as a relationship of pairing and duty, and is not restricted solely to a biological husband and wife dynamic. To understand this pairing better, we have to examine the internal relationship between the self and the human state in verses 75-3. Here, we discover a fascinating internal pairing. We see nafsi, which consistently functions as an internal indicator of self-reflective responsibility that experiences blame or tranquility. Right next to it is insan, the whole responsible human moral agent. Shifting azwāj from spouse to duty totally reshapes our view. It links heavily to human accountability, representing an inseparable internal counterpart of responsibility. Okay, moving into Section 5, redefining modesty and integrity. Understanding this duty-bound pairing allows us to decode one of the most famously mistranslated verses out there. The word furūj in verse 70-29 is traditionally translated as guarding biological private parts or modesty. But again, if we maintain our formal researcher persona and analyze the root without cognitive bias, it fundamentally means preserving your integrity against breaches, gaps, or ruptures. Modesty is an interpretive conclusion drawn from medieval tradition, not what the noun actually means. We know this for an absolute fact because verse 56 uses the exact same word, furūj, to describe the sky. It asks us to look at the heaven above and notice how it has no furūj. Obviously, the sky doesn't have private parts, right? It means the sky has no structural cracks or fissures. This proves the common denominator of the root is integrity versus breach, not anatomy. It's all about safeguarding your points of vulnerability. Let's bring all these puzzle pieces together in Section 6, a restored moral framework. Look at this restored translation of verse 70-30. Stripping away the medieval assumptions about slaves and wives and strictly using our root-first approach, the text transforms entirely. It actively urges us to safeguard our vulnerabilities, our furūj, in the specific context of our duty-bound counterparts, our azwāj, and the binding commitments our right hands possess, our ayman. It's a profound, systemic statement about keeping your integrity intact within your binding societal relationships. This glossary synthesizes an objective comparison perfectly. On the left, oaths, ritual deeds, wives, private parts. It's a highly personal, ritualistic, and anatomically focused reading. But on the right, binding commitments, an orientation toward justice, paired counterparts, and structural integrity. The original Quranic Roots present a vastly more precise, socially responsible framework that modern linguistic decay has sadly obscured over time. I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. How does shifting from a mindset of personal ritual and anatomical modesty to one of active, collective social restoration fundamentally change the decisions you will make tomorrow? If the book's ultimate goal for your binding commitments is islah, actively repairing what is broken among humanity, what broken part of your community are you committed to repairing today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep digging into those roots, and I'll catch you next time.